Check. 1, 2, 3. Alright, hey, it's William again. And I, like most people, haven't read the Green New Deal from cover to cover. I've heard snippets of it from people on the left and the right. And I don't think anyone can pass full judgment until they've read it cover to cover. I'm here today to help you do that. So you can cook some food, listen to the book. You can just chill and do some cleaning and listen. So let's listen to this together. Alright, the Green New Deal, Resolution 109. It was drafted by Miss Ocasio-Cortez, and all of these other people signed on to it. You can take a look at their names yourself. I don't want to read them all and read them badly, I'm sure. Alright, let's go down to the actual resolution. Alright, resolution. Recognizing the duty of the federal government to create a Green New Deal. Whereas the October 2018 report entitled Special Report on Global Warming of 1.5°C by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the November 2018 Fourth National Climate Assessment Report found that 1. Human activity is the dominant cause of observed climate change over the past century. 2. A changing climate is causing sea levels to rise and an increase in wildfires, severe storms, droughts, and other extreme weather events that threaten human life, healthy communities, and critical infrastructures. 3. Global warming at or above 2 degrees Celsius beyond pre-industrialized levels will cause a. Mass migration from the regions most affected by climate change, more than, 9 zeros, so that's billion, more than 500 billion in lost annual economic output in the United States by the year 2100, wildfires that by 2050 will annually burn at least twice as much forest area in the western United States than was typically burned by wildfires in the years preceding 2019, a loss of more than 99% of all coral reefs on Earth. See, I'm a scuba diver, so that's important for me. More than 350 million more people to be exposed globally to deadly heat stress by 2050. And F, a risk of damage of 12 zeros, that must be trillion, a risk of damage to $1 trillion of public infrastructure and coastal real estate in the United States. And 4. Global temperatures must be kept below 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrialized levels to avoid the most severe impacts of a changing climate, which will require global reduction in greenhouse gas emission from human sources of 40 to 60% from 2010 levels by 2030, and net zero global emissions by 2050. I mean, all of these are good things. You want to protect the Earth. You want to make sure no one gets under the sea level. So I'm on board with it so far. Let's see. And net zero. Alright. Whereas, because the United States has historically been responsible for a disproportionate amount of greenhouse gas emissions, having emitted 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions through 2014, and has a high technological capacity, the United States must take a leading role in reducing emissions through economic transformation. Alright? Whereas the United States is currently experiencing several related crises, with life expectancy declining, while basic needs such as clean air, clean water, healthy food, and adequate health care, housing, transportation, and education are inaccessible to a significant portion of the United States population. I wouldn't say a large portion. It's probably less than 5% of those people that are suffering those. A 4-decade trend of wage stagnation, deindustrialization, and anti-labor policies that has led to hourly wages overall stagnating since the 1970s despite increased worker productivity, the third worst level of socioeconomic mobility in the developed world before the Great Recession, the erosion of the earnings and bargaining power of workers in the United States, and inadequate resources for public sector workers to confront the challenges of climate change at local, state, and federal levels. The greatest income inequality since the 1920s, with the top 1% of earners accruing 91% of gains in the first few years of economic recovery after the Great Recession. a large racial wealth divide amounting to a difference of 20 times more wealth between the average white family and the average black family, and a gender earning gap that results in women earning approximately 80% as much as men at the median. Alright, we can dissect this part. I mean, the top 1%, like the 1% of the 1%, the creme de la creme, they all support liberal politicians. So you need to ask yourself, why does the 1% of 1% support liberal politicians? Your average upper middle class, like wealthy person is usually a Republican, but when you look at extreme wealth, they're always Democratic. The top of the top, at least. Let's see, racial wealth. I don't like to talk about race much. People are people. And, alright. Whereas climate change, pollution, and environmental destruction have exacerbated systemic, racial, regional, social, environmental, and economic injustices, referred to this preamble as systemic injustices, by disproportionately affecting indigenous peoples, so like Native Americans, communities of color, migrant communities, deindustrialized communities. Does that mean Amish people? What does that mean? Depopulated rural communities, the poor, low-income workers, women, the elderly, the unhoused, homeless, that's a new word for homeless people, people with disabilities, and youth, referred to in this preamble as frontline and vulnerable communities. I mean, these are all communities that get a lot of help from the government, and you'll notice that they're all at the bottom of the wealth tier. Asian Americans, like East Asian, Chinese, Japan, Korean, Vietnamese, East Asian Americans and Indian Americans, like from India, are actually wealthier than white Americans, and the government does nothing to promote them or help them. I really have just been feeling lately, the further away the government is from something, the better off it does. Whereas the government says, give me more power, give me more money, and I can solve everything. The only reason I cannot solve everything now is because I don't have enough power. I don't have enough money. Alright, let's continue. Whereas climate change constitutes a direct threat to the national security of the United States by impacting the economic, environmental, and social stability of countries and communities around the world, and by acting as a threat multiplier. So it sounds here like AOC is saying people coming to America is a direct threat to national security, but her and all of her kind, like the left-leaning Democrats, say immigration is a good thing. So I'm confused here. It sounds like she's blaming migrants for causing problems in America. Whereas the federal government led mobilization during World War II and the New Deal created the greatest middle class that the United States has ever seen, but many members of frontline and vulnerable communities, these are the aforementioned groups like minorities and poor people, were excluded from many of the economic and societal benefits of those mobilizations. And whereas the House of Representatives recognizes that a new national, social, industrial, and economic mobilization on a scale not seen since World War II and the New Deal era is a historic opportunity. This seriously just sounds like Make America Great Again. She's talking about a time long ago when everyone thought, it was good times. The middle class was strong. We just finished World War II. So it sounds to me like she's saying, make America great again. To create millions of good, high-wage jobs in the United States, to provide an unprecedented level of prosperity and economic security to all people of the United States, and to counteract systemic injustices, now, therefore, be it resolved. That is the sense of the House of Representatives, that is the duty of the federal government to create a Green New Deal, to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions through a fair and just transition for all communities and workers, to create millions of good, high-wage jobs and ensure prosperity and economic security for all the people of the United States, and to invest in the infrastructure and industry of the United States to sustainably meet the challenges of the 21st century. I'm okay with most of that except for Part B. Legislating. Legislating means the government decreeing something, the government saying something, and then it exists. Right now, murder is illegal. Does murder occur? Yes. So they want to ensure jobs and prosperity, wealth for all people. That oversteps free will. Some people are just messed up, crazy, broken people. They want to do drugs all day and scream in the streets. Some people don't want to work. They want to just live on their friend's sofa or in their mom's basement. I mean, is she going to force people to get jobs? I don't think people would like that. A lot of people are just alternative lifestyle, you know? All right. To secure for all the people of the United States for generations to come, clean air and water, climate and community resiliency, that's very vague, healthy food, access to nature, and a sustainable environment, and to promote justice and equity by stopping current, preventing future, and repairing historic oppression of indigenous people, communities of color, migrant communities, deindustrialized communities, depopulated rural communities, the poor, low-income workers, women, the elderly, the unhoused, people with disabilities, and youth, referred to in this resolution as frontline and vulnerable communities. Guys, something you need to be really careful about is the word equity. Equity. For example, equality. Everyone in America should be okay with equality. We all have the same opportunities to go to school, to get a good job, to make our families happy and healthy. Equity means everyone doesn't start at the same level. It means everyone ends at the same level. So equity means we're all the same, meaning if this person makes more money, why doesn't this person have the same money? We should all be equitable. Equity and equality are not the same thing, and this is kind of a tricky word you need to pay attention to. Equity. All right. The goals described in subparagraphs through of paragraph 1, referred to in this resolution as the Green New Deal goals, should be accomplished through a 10-year national mobilization, referred to in this resolution as the Green New Deal mobilization, that will require the following goals and projects. All right, guys, we're about at the halfway point. Building resiliency against climate change-related disasters such as extreme weather, including by leveraging funding and providing investments for community-defined projects and strategies. Repairing and upgrading the infrastructure in the United States, including by eliminating pollution and the greenhouse gas emission as much as technologically feasible. By guaranteeing universal access to clean water, by reducing the risks posed by climate impacts, and by ensuring that any infrastructure bill considered by Congress addresses climate change, meeting 100% of the power demand in the United States through clean, renewable, and zero-emission energy sources, including... So listen, zero-emission energy sources, there's something in manufacturing and engineering called production cost. So to create turbines, to create solar panels, there's a production cost. So nothing is actually zero emission. You have to use the initial energy to create the thing in the first place. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of oil and gas. Obviously, it works well, and it's what we're going to be using for the next 10 to 20 years. But lots of people like it because the production cost of oil is relatively low, whereas what you get from it is high. Right now, I want green energy. I want electric energy. But the production cost of green energy and what you get out of green energy is relatively low. So like right now, the ratios are not great. So we need to develop green energy. And the best way to develop anything, you can look at like America versus the USSR, the space race of the 60s. Who won? Capitalism won, whereas communism failed. Capitalism is the most beautiful thing in the world. Capitalism brings innovation. Innovation. I live in China for 6 or 7 years already, and nothing changes, and the technology is not as great as America because they don't have the capitalistic innovation. All right, zero emission. All right, by dramatically expanding and upgrading renewable power sources and by deploying new capacity. Building or upgrading energy efficient, distributed, and smart power grids, and ensuring affordable access to electricity. Upgrading all existing buildings in the United States and building new buildings. That just sounds like bad English, AOC, like building new buildings. You should say building new structures, creating new buildings. That just sounds redundant. To achieve maximum energy efficiency, water efficiency, safety, affordability, comfort, and durability, including through electrification, spurring massive growth in clean manufacturing in the United States and removing pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from manufacturing and industry as much as is technologically feasible, including by expanding renewable energy manufacturing and investing in existing manufacturing and industry. Working collaboratively with farmers and ranchers in the United States to remove pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from the agricultural sector as much as is technologically feasible, including... So this is something that people talk about a lot. Most people that haven't read the Green New Deal are saying AOC wants to get rid of cows. No farming with AOC, no meat. So let's see if that's true. This is my first time reading as well. So farmers and ranchers, by supporting the family farming, by investing in sustainable farming and land use practices that increase soil health, and by building a more sustainable food system and ensure universal access to healthy food. Overhauling transportation systems in the United States to remove pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector as much as is technologically feasible, including through investment in zero-emission vehicle infrastructure and manufacturing. Again, zero-emission vehicles are impossible because there's production costs. Clean, affordable, and accessible public transit, and high-speed rail. High-speed rail really is fantastic. In Asia, it's cool, it's cheap, it's quick, and you're not confined to a small airport seat. You can walk around the train. It's basically a normal train seat is the same as a first class, business class airplane seat. So it's really nice. All right, mitigating and managing the long-term adverse health, economic, and other effects of pollution and climate change, including by providing funding for community-defined projects and strategies. Removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere and reducing pollution by restoring natural ecosystems through proven low-tech solutions that increase soil carbon storage, such as land preservation and afforestation. Restoring and protecting threatened, endangered, and fragile ecosystems through locally appropriate and science-based projects that enhance biodiversity and support climate resiliency. Cleaning up existing hazardous waste and abandoned sites, ensuring economic development and sustainability on those sites. Identifying other emissions and pollution sources and creating solutions to remove them, and promoting the international exchange of technology, expertise, products, funding, and services with the aim of making the United States the international leader on climate action and to help other countries achieve a Green New Deal. A Green New Deal, and I would say America already is the international leader because we create the most high-tech products. So Tesla. In China, every person with money wants to drive a Tesla. So we're already leading the climate change in the fact that we create innovative, cool products that people want to buy. A Green New Deal must be developed through transparent and inclusive consultation, collaboration, and partnership with frontline and vulnerable communities, labor unions, worker cooperatives, civil society groups, academia, and businesses. And to achieve the Green New Deal in mobilization, a Green New Deal will require the following goals and projects. So back to the cow thing, like lots of people saying AOC said no cows, no farming, no meat. I didn't see that written, but they keep saying bring down pollution as much as technologically feasible. Cows do produce a large amount of greenhouse gases, so if she really wants to make the greenhouse gases as low as technologically feasible, that would include no cows, but it didn't say in here. I feel like the cow thing is kind of a straw man. I'm officially saying that, and I used to say the cow thing. So I don't think AOC wants to get rid of cows. I'm not sure, though. All right. So these things are what she's going to do to make it possible. Providing and leveraging in a way that ensures that the public receives appropriate ownership, stakes, and returns on investment, adequate capital, including through community grants, public banks, and other public financing, technical expertise, supporting policies, and other forms of assistance to communities, organizations, federal, state, and local government agencies, and businesses working on the Green New Deal mobilization. Ensuring that the federal government takes into account the complete environmental and social costs and impacts of emissions through existing laws, new policies and programs, and ensuring that frontline and vulnerable communities shall not be adversely affected. I feel like a lot of those communities work in the energy industry, so in the short term they would lose their jobs if they work in the oil fields or if they work in any of those production fields. So you would be hurting people short term, but potentially long term it would be better. That's the issue. Long-term gain requires short-term pain. You want to make a lot of money, you work really hard. You want to get a good body, you work out really hard. Long-term gain requires short-term pain. That's why people are reluctant for the electrical energy switch. All right, providing resources, training, and high-quality education, including higher education to all people of the United States. Higher education meaning college, university, with a focus on frontline and vulnerable communities. There already is a focus on frontline and vulnerable communities. There's so many scholarships that only exist for women. There's so many scholarships that only exist for people of color. And by people of color, I don't mean Asian. Asians are hurt the worst by affirmative action. Asian groups in California are always actively fighting the Democratic Party because affirmative action doesn't care if you got a really good SAT score. They care about the color of your skin, which Martin Luther King would call racism. Do not judge someone by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Martin Luther King would not be a fan of affirmative action. Neither are the Asians, who are also people of color. May be full and equal participants in the Green New Deal mobilization, making public investments in the research and development of new clean and renewable energy technologies and industries, directing investments to spur economic development. See, that's the thing about the government. They think they can move $1 from here to this hand. And they think if they put $1 in this hand, it'll somehow be $1.10. But, physics, there's always like inertia and loss of energy. If you have $1 here, you put it here, it's going to be 99 cents, it's going to be 89 cents, it's going to get lower and lower. I don't personally think the government can create jobs or can create money. I think only the free market can do that. Directing investments to spur economic development, deepen and diversify industry and businesses in local and regional economies, and build wealth and community ownership. The government cannot build wealth. Look at the people they help. They help African Americans and they help Native Americans. Those are the two poorest groups. They don't look at the Asian communities at all, and those are the wealthiest groups. While prioritizing high-quality job creation and economic, social, and environmental benefits in frontline and vulnerable communities and de-industrialized communities that may otherwise struggle with the transition away from greenhouse gas-intensive industries. Ensuring the use of democratic and participatory processes that are inclusive of and led by frontline and vulnerable communities and workers to plan, implement, and administer the Green New Deal mobilization at the local level. So she just said, like, all of these vulnerable communities should be the people implementing and planning it. These people aren't usually, like, business leaders. They're not the people that have traditionally created jobs and wealth. They're the people that are suffering under the current system. So I don't think the average homeless person should be in charge of this. It should be people that have already proven themselves as business leaders or community leaders. Ensuring that the Green New Deal mobilization creates high-quality union jobs that Joe Biden just cut like 20,000 of, Keystone Pipeline XL, that pay prevailing wages, hire local workers, offers training and advancement opportunities, and guarantees wage and benefit parity for workers affected by the transition. See, this is important. Like, if we need to cut oil jobs and move them to electric jobs, green jobs, there will be a transition and it will be painful. That's an inevitability. Guaranteeing a job with a family-sustaining wage, adequate family and medical leave, paid vacations and retirement security to all people of the United States. This is what I mentioned earlier. You cannot legislate human nature. My girlfriend, fiance, and I are not going to have a child until we have like $100,000 in the bank and our mortgage is mostly paid off. So our family sustainability and someone else's sustainability who didn't finish high school and has like 4 children by the age of like 23, sustainability is different for different people. You cannot legislate human nature. Like, if you want to be irresponsible and spend money on cigarettes and coffee, the government's going to make sure you have enough money. Whereas I, who earn a decent amount, don't buy coffee, I don't buy cigarettes, I don't buy beer. I'm the cheapest person you know. I don't like spending money. So the government's going to make sure we're all at the same level, even though we all live differently. Personal responsibility is not an important thing to the government. They want equity, not equality. And equality is this: we all start at the same level. Equity is we all end at the same level. No one wants that. Strengthening and protecting the right of all workers to organize, unionize, and collectively bargain free of coercion, intimidation, and harassment. Strengthening and enforcing labor, workplace health and safety, anti-discrimination, and wage and hour standards across all employment industries and sectors. See, another thing about minimum wage, for example, North Dakota. Perhaps in North Dakota, South Dakota, you can live decently on $8 minimum wage. Say you and your wife are both making $8 and you live responsibly, you don't have children, or you have one child. But if you want to live in California or New York or like Miami, even if the minimum wage becomes $25 per hour, you have 4 children, you drink, you smoke, you drink coffee, you're not going to be able to keep your head above water. So them legislating the minimum wage is not going to fix your irresponsible life choices. Okay? Let's see. Okay? Enacting and enforcing trade rules, procurement standards, and border adjustments with strong labor and environmental protection to stop the transfer of jobs and pollution overseas. AOC, you sound like a Republican now. You are almost on the verge of, well, not a Republican, but a conservative. You are almost on the verge of making a lot of sense. Keep going, and one day I think you will be a great leader. So to stop the transfer of jobs and pollution overseas, yes, 100% yes. And to grow domestic manufacturing in the United States, yes. Ensuring that public lands, waters, and oceans are protected and that eminent domain is not abused. So again, I said earlier I believe in the free market. If you can create a factory in China or Indonesia and maximize your profits, I think that is where the government should step in. Call me a communist, I don't know. But I think Americans should be protected, and free trade is less important than American protection. I sound like a hypocrite right now. But I don't think you should be able to send your jobs overseas to maximize profits, because the CEOs, they gain crazy high profits and the workers do not. The workers suffer. So I feel kind of liberal on that, I guess. All right, ensuring that public lands, waters, and oceans are protected and that eminent domain is not abused. Eminent domain is a government rule, where the government can basically steal land if they say it's like for the good of the nation, which is bad. Most people don't like that. We're almost finished, guys. And obtaining the free, prior, and informed consent of indigenous peoples for all decisions that affect indigenous peoples and their traditional territories, honoring all treaties and agreements with indigenous peoples, and protecting and enforcing the sovereignty and land rights of indigenous peoples. Alright, I'll link a great YouTube video that I just watched. It's basically one group of Native Americans that doesn't have any affiliation with the government, and another group that has total control by the federal government. The group that doesn't mess with the government is very well off. They're creating business. They're all living in big houses. The group that is mandated entirely by the government is living on the reservation, living in trailers, lots of poverty and drugs and bad situations. So I'll put that in here. It was a great video. So the indigenous peoples, we do need to help them by stepping back. Ensuring a commercial environment where every business person is free from unfair competition and domination by domestic or international monopolies. Maybe that's what I just mentioned. Providing all people of the United States with high-quality health care, affordable, safe, and adequate housing, economic security, clean water, air, healthy and affordable food, and access to nature. Alright, I'm okay with one. I do think we should have healthcare like England and Europe and most developed nations. Affordable, safe, and adequate housing, that's more of a free market thing. But there was this thing in California where owners of multiple properties, instead of renting to people, they would just do Airbnb for tourism. So they would make a lot more money, and, you know, tourists are usually wealthier, so they're not going to destroy the place probably. So California did have to legislate that you cannot rent your place to Airbnb. You have to keep it for rent for normal people. But guys, if you worry about anything in life, if you're renting after 30, you're not doing the right thing. You need to become your own landlord. Get your mortgage, okay? So I don't think the government can mandate everything, but they should take steps to help people. Economic security. So that means if I want to go to the casino and spend every dollar I have, irresponsible, and I lose all my money, the government will make sure that I'm secure again, and then I can spend it all again. What do you mean by economic security? You cannot mandate human nature. Alright, and clean water, yes. Clean air, healthy and affordable food. I mean, that's subjective. And access to nature. Yeah, everyone has a park, I think. Alright guys, wow, we did it. That wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be. If I talked too much in the video, I'm sorry, but this was interesting stuff and it was my first time reading. If you want me to just read through and then say my comments, let me know. If you're okay with me reading it and commenting at the same time, let me know. And just, what do you think about this? I'm happy that I read it. The straw man arguments I've heard against this were it makes cows illegal and something about no airplanes. I didn't see that in here, but I guess like through what she's saying, like reducing greenhouse gases to as low as possible, I guess that would mean getting rid of airplanes. So I'm not quite sure. Again, there's lots of stuff that the left is saying and the right is saying about this. So I think it's great to just read it yourself and to understand it. But again, there are certain implications here. So what does she mean by that? We need clarification here. But overall, helping America, keeping jobs local, cleaning up the environment, those are all great things. The only issues I've got any problem with are where she tries to get everyone equitable. Through personal decisions, people are never going to all be at the same place. Equality is good. I start here, you start here. Equity, I end here, you end here, is not good. Equity is basically communism. And I know that's kind of a bad word nowadays, but that's what I think. Alright guys, this was William, and I'm happy we read this together. I hope you learned something. I learned something. I need to go to class in about 20 minutes. Alright guys, thank you. Goodbye.